What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Potted Plant Entertainment. My name is Chris, and in case you don't know, I review movies, and I rank them on a scale of 0 to 100 in increments of 5. We are back, baby. I have had a very busy couple of weeks, but now we are back. And we're starting our Halloween special, starting with The Exorcist. The Exorcist, what an influential movie. This movie has inspired generations of filmmakers. It's often called the scariest movie of all time, and if you've never seen it, you should watch it, because then it'll be pretty obvious as to why. It's not as, intense, necessarily, as, horror movies that you get today, like The Conjuring, which are just really, up there. This movie is a little bit more... It has some social commentary in it, like a religion versus science, and it tells you a story about characters with the cool horror aspect that's also there. Very similar to Jaws. Has very endearing characters, and there's this cool shark as well. And that's one of the things I love about The Exorcist. So let's talk about it. So The Exorcist came out in 1973, and it stars Ellen Burstyn, Linda Blair, Jason Miller, Max von Sydow, and Lee J. Cobb, and it was directed by William Friedkin. And this movie tells the story of a little girl who gets possessed, and her mother is trying to figure out how she can help her. All the while, a priest, played by Jason Miller, is battling his own personal demons, and eventually comes to try and help this girl. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of social commentary in here, because they're like, oh, there's clearly something wrong with her mentally, but you know there's not. She's possessed. And it delves into these science versus religion topics while not being against either one, and I very much appreciate that about this film. So let's get into my pros and cons. So one of the things I love about this movie is that it relentlessly beats down the characters. Very similar to Spider-Man 2, how it just keeps pounding Peter Parker into the dirt. This movie does the same thing with our characters here. It just doesn't let up, and it just beats down on them. It's also very scary. Like I said, this is often called the scariest... Stupid plane. This is often called one of the scariest movies, if not the scariest movie of all time. It even says it right here on the cover. The scariest film of all time. Because when this movie came out, you can look up audience reactions to this on YouTube. People were passing out and puking constantly, and I've heard that some people even had heart attacks watching this movie. And when you watch it today, you can still see why. Like, by today's standards, it's still pretty intense, in my opinion. Like, I really do think that this kind of stands up to movies like The Conjuring that were obviously heavily inspired by this movie, even though it may not be as intense and there's not as much scary stuff in it. I think it still holds up super, super well, and it still terrifies people to this day. And it feels real. There's a real horror to this. It's a mother who doesn't know what to do to help her daughter, and nobody else knows what to do either. That is a real horror that you can encounter, and it makes it all the more scarier for it. The practical effects are great. When this movie, I'm more talking about the extended edition of this film, because that's the only one I've seen. I've never even seen the theatrical cut. Like, the theatrical cut doesn't even have the spider walk on the stairs scene. So I think I prefer the extended cut anyways. But the extended cut, they put in some digital effects, like to put in that demon face, appearing over Linda Blair's face, and behind Ellen Burstyn, and that's all done digitally, and it was added later, but it's still all practical effects. Aside from the face, it's all practical effects, and you can tell because it looks so much better because it's real. Hey, Marvel, real stuff looks cool. Just putting that out there, and the floating face in the extended cut of The Exorcist still holds up better than the kid's floating face in Thor: Love and Thunder. Just saying. Okay. Also, the makeup is fantastic. The makeup on Linda Blair is like the prime example of doing great makeup work on an actor. She looks so scary, and it's just amazing. It really is. And also on Max von Sydow, the makeup. He actually was in his early 40s when he made this movie, but they put makeup on him to make him look old. You would never guess that unless somebody told you that, because the makeup holds up so good and it looks so good. The performances are fantastic. There were 3 Oscar performances that came out of this stupid plane. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about the planes. I don't know why they just feel they need to fly overhead while I'm recording. Anyways, so Ellen Burstyn got nominated, Linda Blair got nominated, and Jason Miller all got nominated. None of them won, but Linda Blair gives one of the best childhood performances of all time in this movie. Like, when you talk about great childhood performances, you're talking Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, and Linda Blair in The Exorcist. She is perfect in this movie. And I know that this was not an easy movie for her to make. It wasn't an easy movie for anyone to make. Like, even like in the exorcism scene when you can see everyone's breath, it's because it's like negative 20 degrees in that room. Like, they did this. Like, it's real. She had to wear all this makeup. She had to lay in this very cold room and act. It wasn't an easy movie to make, but you can tell that they were passionate about what they making. They believed in their source material, and they made a fantastic film. There's also this constant underlying tension in this movie. Even in scenes where nothing is happening, like scary, you still feel like on edge, because the movie has this very cold atmosphere to it that's just always there. And so you can never really escape this uneasy feeling. Even in the scene when Ella Burstyn and Linda Blair, they're like playing with each other and they're like laughing. Even in that, you don't feel joy because you know what's coming. And so there's just this constant uneasy feeling you get throughout this movie. This movie has great atmosphere to it. Let's see. The editing is pristine. The editing of this movie is really, really good. I think it got nominated for an Oscar for its editing. It got nominated for like 9 Academy Awards for like a whole bunch of different stuff, like sound effects and stuff. The sound effects in this movie, by the way, are fantastic. Even when Linda Blair's head turns, like does that 360 spin, the sound effect is them just crinkling a wallet. And I love it when like old-fashioned movies would do that to make their sound effects. They would find everyday objects and do stuff with them to make these cool sound effects. Nowadays, everything's pretty much just digital, but back then they got more creative with it, and I always love that about these old-fashioned sound effects in films. The cinematography is great. The lighting is great because it just, like I said, this whole movie has this whole cold feeling to it, and part of the reason for that is the lighting. The movie is super creepy, too. Like, after Regan kills Father Merton, and she's just sort of sitting there, chilling, like looking at him, like out of like, she's got like this real curious look on her face. It is really, really creepy. Like, she's just sitting there like just looking at her, like admiring her work, and it's so weird. It's so unnerving. The exorcism sequence in this movie is like one of the best third acts to a film ever. Like, it's one of the best movie climaxes of all time. Like, it's right up there with like the bridge sequence in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Like, it really is just so, it's filmmaking at its best. It really is. And that's the moment in the movie that you look forward to the most. Like, you're like, it's like the setting the trap scene in Home Alone. Like, you just can't wait to get to that part in it. I also really like the creepy face of the demon that keeps popping up in the extended cut of the film. Some people say that like it's kind of corny. I actually like it because I think it does add something to it. I personally enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's dumb? Because some people do, and that's okay. But I kind of like it. So let me know in the comments what you think about the face popping up in a few scenes throughout the film in the extended cut. Okay, so let's get into my cons. You know, I just realized I didn't write my rating. That's okay, I'll do that now. So, I don't think this movie is perfect. I think it's pretty close, but I do have a few problems with it. So, for one thing, the movie, like, sort of cuts to Regan getting mentally evaluated. It never shows that there's something wrong with her beforehand. And then, on top of that, the mother, she doesn't really believe that she's possessed. She just thinks there's something wrong with her. But then all of a sudden later in the movie, she just suddenly does, and it never shows you that arc to how she gets to that place where she's like, that thing upstairs is not my daughter. It never shows you how she goes from believing there's something wrong with her to fully committedly believing that her daughter's possessed. It doesn't show that arc. It also takes a little bit too long to get going. I wouldn't say there's specific scenes entirely that should be cut from the film. It just feels like it takes a little bit too long to get to the point. And then this is probably will be a very controversial opinion about this film, and maybe you can convince me that I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't really like how this movie always cuts away from the scary scenes. It does that throughout the whole movie. You get a scary sequence, it's building up, and then it just cuts, and it goes to a calmer sequence. And it's like, I kind of wanted to see the rest of that scene, because I'm curious where he was going. But it just always cuts. Then the scenes just don't, like, the scene builds up and up, and it's just stopped. And it's like, well, what happened? Like, I want to see the rest of this scene. Like, that was great. But no, it just cuts away. And I've heard some people love that about it. I'm not really overly thrilled about it. The only time where I do really like it is the spider crawl sequence on the stairs. How it just cuts away from that. That is perfect. That is perfect right there. But everywhere else, I didn't really like it. Like, and the cross scene, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, she starts moving the furniture around and she shoves her mom's face into her bloody, you know what I'm saying. And the furniture's all moving around, and then it just stops. And it's like, well, how did this scene conclude? Like, I wanted to see where that was going, but no, it just cuts. And I know that these seem like big complaints, but I really do love this movie. I do. And I'm going to give The Exorcist a 95. We will be back. More content coming your way. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Potted Planet Entertainment for more. Hit the like button. Leave me reviews, suggestions down in the comments down below. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Potted Planet Entertainment for channel updates and bonus content and much love. Happy Halloween. I know it's September, but you guys said you wanted Halloween content in September, so I'm bringing it to you. So happy Halloween.